In this video, I'm going to show you a useful class to know in .NET Framework, which is called random. We use this class to generate random numbers. So first we create an instance of the random class. This class has a few useful methods. Next, which returns a random integer. Next bytes, which takes a byte array and fills it with some random numbers. So you can create a byte array of any size, pass it to this method, and this method will fill that byte array with some random numbers. And next double, which returns a random double between 0 and 1. Let's take a look at the next method. This method has 3 overloads, as you see on the screen. The first one takes no parameters, and it simply returns a non-negative random number. So let's create a for loop and generate a few random numbers and display them on the console. Okay, let's run the application. So you see some random numbers here. Now, there is something interesting we can do with the next method. Let's take a look at this method again. The second overload takes a maximum value, and the third overload takes a min and max value. This is very useful when we want to limit the range of random numbers. So if you want to create random numbers between 1 and 10, we simply supply them here. Let's run the application again. So now we have random numbers between 1 and 10. We can use this technique to even generate random characters, like random passwords. Each character internally is represented using a number, because computers don't understand characters and letters. They understand numbers. Let me show you what I mean by that. So I temporarily comment this out. And all I want to do is display character A on the console, but I want to cast it to an integer. We got 97. So 97 is the standard number to represent a lowercase a in a computer. This was first introduced as ASCII, which stands for American Standard Code for International Interchange. Let's take a look at this website, ASCII-code.com. So in this table, you can see the letters like, let me show you here, like plus, all these numbers are alphabets A, uppercase A to Z, lowercase. See, all these characters have a number represented in decimal format, which is here, and they also have a binary representation. This is eventually what a computer understands. Now, if you look at 97, you see a lowercase a. And let's take a look at the Z. So Z is 122. So what this means is if you generate a random number between 97 and 122, and then cast it to a character, we'll get a random character. And we can repeat this a few times and generate a random string, like a password. Let's give it a try. So let's bring this back in. What I want to change here is limit the range to 97 and 122. Now, if we run this application, we're going to get a number coming from the next method. So we need to cast it to a character. And I'm going to change right line to right because I don't want each character to be on a new line. Let's run the application. This press any key to continue message is messing up with us. So let me add a console.writeLine here so you can see more clearly. There you go. So here's a random string. Now, a tiny problem with this code is if someone look at this code, they have no idea what is 97 and 122. So let me show you a more expressive way to write the same code. What we can do is replace that with 0 and 26 because we have 26 characters in the English alphabet. Now, we get a number between 0 and 26 if we add that number to character A, what do you think is going to happen? Well, this is a character, and internally it is represented as a number. And when we add this character to a number, the result is going to be a number. Then we cast it to a character, so eventually we get the same result, a random character. Now, in the real world, we don't want to create a random string and display it on the console. Most likely, we would like to store it in a string. But there is a tiny problem here. In the last section, I told you that strings are immutable, which means once you create them, you cannot change them. Of course, there are methods that you can apply on a string and you get an updated value. But in every case, the original string is not affected. You always get a new string. So in C#, we cannot create a string and set its individual characters using a random character. But what we can do instead is to store this result in an array and then create our string based on that array. Let me show you how it works. So first, I declare a character array. Let's call it buffer. And because we are generating 10 random characters here, I'm going to set the size of this array to 10. And of course, we can use var here. As you see, the green highlight is indicating that. The code is cleaner. Now, instead of displaying each character on the console, we can simply store it in the buffer. So let's get rid of this console.write and store it in the buffer. So I'm using the loop counter variable, to access an element in the buffer array. Now the last step is to create a string based on that character array. Now most of the time we create a string like this. So we use a string literal. But there is a less common way to create a string in C#. It's not something that you use every day, but it's good to know that as something in your toolbox. So we use the new operator. If you remember from last section, the string keyword maps to a string class in the .NET framework. And you know that with classes, you can create an instance of them using the new operator. So we can do new string. And look, here in the constructor of a string, we have a few overloads. The last one, as you see here, takes a character array. So if we pass our buffer here, we will get a string based on that character array. Now we can display this password, which is a string, on the console. Look, we got the same result. One last thing I would like to add here to improve the quality of this tiny little code, and that is, I don't like these magic numbers here, 10 here and 10 here. The problem with this is, if tomorrow we decide to change the length of our random password, we have to come here and change this 10 to 8, and we have to remember to do this here as well. So a better way is to declare a constant like password length, set it to 10. We can use that to create our array, and of course use it in the for loop. The code is more expressive and more reliable. So that's all you need to know about random class. I hope you enjoyed this lecture, and thank you for watching.